right, well, welcome everybody to episode 13 of the Hockey Toolkit. I am Trevor DiCarlo.
The dreaded number 13. Scary. But, Pavel Datsyuk changed that game.
He did.
Datsyuk, when he wore 13, it's like everybody wanted to wear 13 after that. All the kids now, we never have 13 unused.
I would never touch it, but my co-host there, Andrew Trimble, but I would never touch 13 in my life depending on it just because of my superstitions. But this is going to be a great episode because I think it definitely comes with after the last one we had with talking about recruiting for the college level. Now we're talking about recruiting in the to the junior level, which obviously both of us have experience. You at a much more extensive and higher level than I do. But it's definitely something that's really in our wheelhouse, and it's also that time of the year where this hopefully will produce a lot of good information for families. We have a great interview with Neil Ravin that we will share, and then But before we get into all that, what have you been up to, Coach?
Well, I just got back from doing a USA Hockey camp down in Atlanta. It was a lot of fun. I actually, for the first time ever. I have driven in my life from New Jersey to New Orleans. That was about a 24-hour trip. I've driven from Jacksonville to New Jersey, which was like a 20-hour trip. But I drove from New Hampshire this time all the way down to Atlanta. That was about a 19-hour trip. That was quite a venture. I have a sunburn on my left arm, which is always interesting, driving through the western part of Virginia. But it was a great weekend. I got to see some good hockey and interact in a great community. So, but I'm happy to be back here in New Hampshire. How about yourself, Trevor?
Good. We so the 9U team that I'm coaching right now, we just had our first tournament of the spring, the one of two. Yeah. So again, it's a very informal kind of season. I think we had 3 practices beforehand, and you got kids that are just moving on from different teams. Either way, it was actually really fun because we actually won 3 games. We lost in the championship by 2, lost 4-2, but it was fun because we talked about it before. Going back, last few years I've been working with older kids, and now I'm working with the real young ones, and I don't think I would go much younger than 9U, the squirt level, but it was fun. I really had a blast because there's just so much. It wasn't not even as technical, but it was just more fun. It was just like the kids you could focus on more basic stuff and see more results and in a short amount of time. So again, for me, we had a blast, my assistant and I. So hopefully the next one we take it down. If not, we'll be okay still because it'll still be a good time. So
teaching that age group, coaching that age group is always really fun because you can see a huge jump over the course of the season. Like they can go from being one level to at the end of the season, they really start to understand the game and concepts, and it's amazing. But the fun thing is you can actually, we watched the national championship game with Quinnipiac. They won basically on a face-off. If you put a face-off player or 2 in at that level, and the kids, all 5 kids can be on the same page, the other kids they're playing against really don't understand what's going on. Like play away from the puck.
No.
So if you can execute a face-off play at the 9U level, like it's got a pretty high conversion rate.
Yeah, I mean it would. I'll have to find a parking lot to work on that because I would probably I would be very disappointed in myself if I spent any time that little we have on the ice right now working on a face-off play. But yeah, no, we definitely. If we had just a little something hidden here, we could run the same one probably off of the same face-off over and over again, and nobody would even know.
Like a D-zone face-off where you stretch, like you go indirect off the weak side boards, and you have that winger coming through. Like you can stretch the zone, and all of a sudden you get breakaways 2-on-1s, and the D's are just totally flat-footed. So, I'm not telling you how to coach.
No, hey, I'll take any tips that I can. I'm not a guy here. I don't get all the answers. But, so that was fun. So when you said you were down in, it was ran through USA Hockey, the showcase?
It was a SAHA. So it's a player development camp. So
okay.
They have kids in all different birth years trying out. They want to move from that level onto, I believe it's in Raleigh, the district camp.
Yeah.
and
Okay. Yeah.
the best players of the district camp then go on to Buffalo. So I was part of the evaluation process in that, and we've had some really good players come through that camp, and it's fun to watch the sport grow. I know the numbers have dipped a little bit in the Southern District since the Thrashers left, a number of years ago, but Nashville's really become the hotbed. But they still try to do it in different locations each year, so that you're not just favoring one location. So this year was in Atlanta.
Yeah, so I know like Illinois has theirs. We just got done with ours as well. So then those kids move on to their, we call them the ID camps or whatever, the identification camps. So yeah, those are it's very cool. And then so what else is on the docket here for the coming up? Anything at all? I mean, I know you got. For you, this is basically the. Not that it's not a regular grind every day, but now you got to rebuild the teams and the programs with the missing pieces that are have left or moved on, aged out. So what does that look like?
Well, that is Trevor. You don't give yourself enough credit. That is the perfect segue. Into our topic for the day.
I know. I didn't want to say anything. I was like, all right, let's see how smooth I can make it. But we're getting better.
I'm nervous talking to you. You're getting really good at this.
Only took us 13 weeks, but we're getting there.
Yeah, so now it's junior hockey recruiting season. Like we have our youth rosters basically set. We had tryouts after USA Hockey, whatever, during that tryout time period.
Yep.
We were able to fill our rosters. Our rosters look really strong. We only have 3 teams at the youth level, but it's an ongoing process to recruit your junior hockey teams. And it used to be 20 years ago, you could have a tryout camp. You'd have 100 kids sign up. They would play against each other. You could evaluate them over the course of the weekend. But junior hockey expanded a lot over the last 15 years. So now you might have a small tryout and be able to identify some players, but really you have to go outside your borders, outside your walls, outside your comfort zone, and you have to go find players, and you got to recruit those players. And that brings us into, talking about junior hockey showcases. In your experience recruiting, what are some of the best showcases that you've seen in terms of identifying players?
For one that we definitely do touch on when we talk with Neil here is CCM Showcase was probably one of the best ones that I've ever attended. Just not only from the quality of kids, but also the quality of the showcase itself. Hands down, I don't think there's any better ones. Well, the other one that I do like was the Global Hockey Showcase. We have one here in Chicago. There's also one in Las Vegas. I know that one's more popular to go to for, obvious reasons. But, those are the 2 that I've really enjoyed going to. I've been to a few others. But you know what, honestly, they're with leagues doing their own thing now. We're seeing few and far between just individual businesses running their own showcase. I mean, I know 5 Hole's no longer around. That was one that was pretty popular that we attended. Mr. I don't think he's even around anymore. So those are the 2 that I've. Global and CCM are the 2 that I've really liked going to. And don't get me wrong, I like CCM because they usually give us free gear. So that was always nice too. But and it's beautiful out in Colorado. But how about yourself? What do you got?
Well, I would agree 100%. I think when you go to a showcase, you really want a rink that's a high quality rink, right? CCM checks off that box. It's a 3-sheet facility which has great sight lines where you can watch multiple games at one time.
Yep.
You also want something that's well run. When you go in there to see a game or see a player, it's going to start on time. CCM always does that. Yep. Access to the players, they give you a player book. You have access to that player's information. You can also talk to players. That's something we can maybe talk on a little bit later. How kind of sometimes people bend the rules on that, but I do I do think that they give a really good access to players, and then they also do a lot of informational seminars too during the CCM showcase. So in my opinion, I think Mike Gempler runs a great program out there in Denver, Colorado. And CCM showcase is the top of the heap. There's other ones, like you said, global and different things that happen out in the East Coast, like the Battle of Boston or the pre-draft. And we'll go to those events too, but nothing really brings kids in like a big event. And CCM certainly does that.
No, absolutely. And, if you really want to, we could dive in right now to talking about our experiences with the CCM itself, or just showcases in general. Where you said where there's sometimes rules are bent, and for those listening that are not coaches, that are not scouts, anyone that's a parent or player, like there are, when we go to showcases, quality showcases have rules for the coaches, GMs, scouts, recruiters, so assistant coaches, whatever. They have rules for us that we need to, we're supposed to abide by. And one of those big ones is, waiting till after a player's left the locker room to go and talk to them. And I can't even tell you how many times we go to these tournament or these showcases, and kid's not even off the ice yet, and there's at least 3 teams hounding him, and it's the same DM 3 teams. I'm not going to throw them out under the bus as much as I want to, but my God, it's one thing that frustrates a lot of the rest of us, because then it's like, well, if you don't get in front of the kid first, you're now behind if you feel like you're behind the 8 ball, you feel like you're missing out, so there's a bunch of other, small little rules here, and but you never know. There's sometimes some gamesmanship going on. I remember one time we signed a player in front of the entire, in the middle of the showcase. This was at, what was it? If it was 5-hole, we signed probably one of the top, more talented defensemen there. He came in with his contract to be signed, and signed it right in front of, in the middle of the lobby, and it was not any intention of ours to have that happen, but it was just after that, we could just see all the pissed off coaches there, and it was from other leagues, and so yeah, it was, that one was kind of fun, being on the actual other end of that, but I could totally see that if I had been trying to work with that kid and that family to try to get him to sign with us, and then all of a sudden just see him come in like that, I could be probably a little pissed too. But what about you, Coach?
Well, I agree with all those sentiments. I think that the way you communicate says a lot about your program and what you want to have out of your players. The one other showcase that I just came to mind that I think is a really well run summer program is the Elite Edge in Nashville. They get a lot of swag for their players. One thing I like about them that they do a little bit different than CCM is they give feedback on every player. So every kid comes out of the tournament and has feedback on their game from a particular coach. And I thought that was really helpful for a lot of kids.
Oh, absolutely. That's awesome.
Yeah. So if you can combine the two to create an ideal program, that's probably somewhere, a combination of CCM and Elite Edge. But like you said, the one thing I think that can really benefit or kids can look into is how your coach is communicating with you. Is he breaking the rules? Is he interrupting other people? Is he pushing people aside? Is he disregarding some of the other kids in the tournament? That says a lot about the program that he's running. So, if you want that respect from the players, the coach should show that respect too. And I think that it says a lot. Now, if you had to kind of pinpoint some things that are really important in the recruiting process for a junior player, what things really stand out to you about a player coming into your program that you want to have in your program from a junior player?
Some of the big things are just what you would want from a regular human being, for any type of thing, whether it's school, business. You want good character people. I want to make sure that the kid that, that's coming into our program, he's, he keeps his nose out of trouble, and again, kids are going to be kids. They're not kids, but teenagers will be teenagers at times. But I don't want someone who's consistently in trouble, someone who's missing class all the time, who doesn't have, who's not taking their grades seriously, because that just translates somewhat over to the ice rink as well. I'm not saying you have to be the most studious of all players, or people, but at least make an effort. Again, it's also how you hold yourself. I don't want to look and see you as, wearing all just, baggy clothes or, shirts that say stupid shit on them, stuff like that. I mean, some of those days are over, but, again, it's how you hold yourself, the confidence factor. And again, I get it. Kids at a younger age, probably more so now than ever before, there's a lot of stuff going on. And it's tough to be confident. There's a lot of it's tough to find quality role models in today's society that can give you that. I'm not trying to go down like it's something like, emotional pitch here, but so I understand it, but it's how you carry yourself. And the kids that we were always looking for were the good hardworking kids. And when I say good, I mean talented, but they were hardworking. And I always enjoyed watching on the ice kids that were, again, it's a showcase, but you know what? They weren't afraid to actually play like it was a regular game, like it was Game 7 to an extent, and you could sit there and say, oh, it's, Johnny Tryhard, but no, it's like, I want to see your best stuff. And when you've got kids out here trying to do, all these different toe drags and dumb spots that would never happen. Well, maybe in their game it does, but should never happen in that situation of a game. Like, that's not what I'm looking for in that situation. I'm looking for the guy who's going to make the right play. So, for me, that was my big thing. Was just, body language, how you carry yourself, how you dress. Again, same thing you would look for probably for anything, even a job. So, how about you, Coach?
Well, I think those are great, and I agree with those. I think that there's a baseline skill set that if you want to play in our league or in a league that's similar to ours, that you have to beat. And I can usually see that baseline skill set, within a couple shifts. If you could skate, pass the puck, handle the puck, make decisions with the puck, shoot the puck, we can really identify those pretty early. But the things that really matter and really get me excited about wanting to have you in my program or our program is humility and accountability. If you're humble in that communication and you're not talking about yourself, but you're talking about how the team did or talking about your experience and what that experience means, then that's important. If you're accountable and saying, wow, I missed a couple here, I could have done this here, like that says a lot to me. Not that you're just pumping your tires all the time, but that you want to be, you realize you can get better.
Absolutely.
Neil mentions a great thing when we talked about Blake Harlow, and it's one thing. Blake Harlow is a memorable player in our program for a lot of different reasons, but he played for the Wolves for 2 years, and he had a great career at UMass Dartmouth. He's now working. He's an engineer in Boston, but I was his EHL coach in 2017-18. He was the captain of our team. I first found him at a showcase, I believe it was a summer tournament or something like that. And when I was his coach, we were in the middle of a playoff run. It was probably February. And he showed up for the game and he forgot his jersey.
Oh, no.
Right? So that's taking a roster spot from somebody else. That's not, it happens in youth hockey, happens everywhere. But for this particular road game, he forgot his jersey. And he was so angry at himself. He was so upset. He said, no, Coach, this is 1,000% on me. I am embarrassed. I'm letting my team down. And he beat himself up about it, And then the next day in practice, I made him, skate both sessions with our premier team and also the EHL team. And he had some other things he had to do, but it wasn't like he was pointing fingers and saying, "Oh, somebody didn't pack my bag," or can I wear the backup goalie's jersey? He said, "No, this is on me. I screwed up. This is 100% my fault." And you like to look for kids who can take that kind of mantle of leadership. And in that game, another kid stepped up and remember Xander Allen in the game that Blake Harlow missed. Xander Allen hadn't scored a goal all year, and went out and scored 4 goals in that one game because he replaced Blake Harlow on the power play and a couple other situations. And he ended up making a commitment to Framingham State and was a nice player there. And but it's funny how when one kid that's really valuable to the team takes ownership over that and doesn't point a finger, it gives another kid an opportunity to step into the limelight a little bit more. And that certainly happened on that day. No,
absolutely. That's a great story. And no, if your excuse is, oh, my mom didn't pack my jersey. At that age, sorry, why are you even here?
For sure.
But no, that's great. Do we want to just swing it over to Neil right now?
Yeah, before we do that, I'd like to ask you a quick question.
All right, go ahead.
So he's going to hit on something that talks a little bit about emails. Junior hockey, it's a global thing. We get emails from kids from all across the country, all across multiple countries. What is an ideal email that you would receive? Tell me, kind of break it down a little bit for me.
The big thing for me, the emails that I would receive, typically from my standpoint was when I was, just as a scout and not as a coach. More or less, I would be the one sending out the emails. But when I would get emails back, or get an email, typically it would be from players that would send out, hi coach, or hi, Mr. DiCarlo. My name is so and so. I currently played this past season here. Here are my stats. Here's a video of me playing. This and that, and that was it. And it was just like, they were never really like, I mean, for me to get an email, I was excited because I was just like, wow, this works both ways. I didn't realize that I could actually get stuff in my inbox. But besides once that factor, wears off pretty quickly. But after that, it's just like, okay, is this someone, like if I was a coach getting this, I'm like, I don't know, I would look at it or I'd maybe respond, but it wasn't anything like the wow factor, I guess you could say. And I can see where, like we talked about last week, Coach Power, especially at the NCAA level, and, I can only imagine what you're going through, in the EHL with the Wolves. Like, after a while, those emails get just redundant, and it feels like you're just reading the same thing, and I'm sure a lot of them are copy and paste, and I'm sure a lot of them are, just very bland and, basic. Nothing that would make me feel any emotional connection towards like, oh yeah, you know what? Let me go further and check this player out. And again, my experience as a scout and / recruiter, when I got the emails, it was a little bit different. But again, like I said, I could see where on the flip side as a coach or GM or something, you get those emails daily, and it's just like who are you? You might as well just erase the name and fill somebody else in because it feels like, again, it's the same thing. But what about you?
I thought, Coach Power brought in a couple, important topics. He said that, keep it short and sweet. Hit on a couple things. Make sure you have an introduction that includes, something personal, like an icebreaker, like, I like Laconia because my aunt grew up near Lake Winnipesaukee, or I really love you guys' jersey scheme. That's the same colors as my high school. Whatever it may be, to break the ice and create a connection there makes a big difference because it shows me that you're interested really in the program. It's not just a form email. And then video, if you can send me a couple links to a full game, that's great. If you can send me, 2 or 3 clips that are not just big hits, so there should be penalties, or just right. One-timer goals, I want to see a little bit of a extended play where it's like a full shift or a full game, because anybody can piece together 5-second bursts of just the finish of the play.
Right.
But you need to see more to get a good scope and understanding of the player.
And I think that's 100%. I've seen that numerous times, especially when I would help out and look at emails and stuff, or with the videos. And even players at the, when I'm coaching at the midget age group, I've had players send stuff out to me. Because, hey, I'm moving from this program or this town here. Here's a video of me playing, this and that. And yeah, goalies love it. They love to send out their highlight reels of them making those quick saves. And I actually had a goalie this year who came over late. His parents were looking for a team to put him on. And actually his video that he had created that for hopeful potential junior coaches down the line, it wasn't just your quick 3-5 second saves. It was the lead up to the save.
That's great.
What happened, where the puck movement was, and how he had to make those saves. And again, a lot of them were just routine saves, but it showed me, here's what I do, here's what it looks like, and, here's where, I'm at with my angles, all this stuff where, usually you get goalies that send their highlight reels and it's 3 seconds, and the first second is just the shot in general, and you don't know, again, you don't even know where the shot's coming from sometimes. It could be, from the first third of the rink, and
Sure.
In the other team's defensive zone, and they're just dumping it in. Oh, hey, you made a great job, catching it on your paddle, where anywhere else, it's oh, okay, well, now I see, oh shit, the puck moved from one side. You're cutting across the Royal Road here. You're making that big save. So I agree with you that, give us a little bit more of an extended look. And I do like the fact that, you mentioned shifts. I think shifts are important because now I'm seeing the whole picture. And not only that, but I don't think players realize that, not to go off on a tangent here. I will anyways, but they don't realize that, we want to see their entire game. So, yeah, that 15 seconds that lead up to a goal, that's great. But But what about the other 15 seconds or 20 seconds before that too? Like what led up to that, and how were you able to get there? Going from, let's say, defense to offense, but if you're trying to show me being a playmaker, whatever. So yeah, I do like those shifts. I like the extended shifts. Whole games, definitely, if it's somebody that we're really interested in. But, for me, that's where I'm at. But how about for you when you're getting those emails and such?
Yeah, that's what we're really looking for. We're looking for those longer, extended sequences, especially like you said with a goalie. Like if I see a whole bunch of recovery saves, it means you're probably not in the right position in the first place.
Right? Yeah, if you're a lot of rebounds, yeah.
Yeah. So you need to see, like you said, the tracking at the beginning of the play to understand where that kid was on his angle, if the rebound was his fault or somebody else's, or how he can handle those rebounds, or how he's handling his angles. So, and I think that's a good segue over to Neil. Neil is the Associate Commissioner of the EHL. Neil Ravin's been in our league since the 2015-16 season. He's seen the league grow and go through some different changes, but he's remained a constant in the growth of the league, and he's done a great job in not only marketing the league, but also marketing our players in the league onto college and beyond. So it's a good segue for him. We're looking forward to having him on the podcast. All right. Well, welcome to the podcast, Associate Director for the EHL, Neil Ravin. Thanks for coming on and joining us, Neil.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Last week we had Jason Power, the assistant coach at Lindenwood University, was talking about college recruiting, and I thought you'd be a great resource for us to discuss junior hockey recruiting and how much different those two landscapes are, and the type of athletes you're getting and the type of questions you're getting. Now, to start us off, really, the first thing I want to hit on is, you've been to a number of different showcases. You've seen a number of different leagues operate. And when you've been out for things like the CCM showcase or the Global Vegas showcase, what have you seen the type of athletes and the type of questions you're getting from players about what makes the EHL different and recruiting those athletes to our league?
So, yeah, I think right in the name, Eastern Hockey League, anybody that's not from the East, frankly, has no idea who we are, right? But it's why we go out to events like that, because, one success story leads to 5 success stories, which leads to 10 success stories, and you name it. I actually wore the CCM Showcase hat tonight. I wasn't even planning on it. I just kind of grabbed it, but it all makes sense that you asked that question to start, Andrew, because I've been going to the CCM Showcase for 4 or 5 years now, and the players that have come from that and been successful in our league are numerous, right? And essentially when we go out there, we're trying to make sure that the players at that event know exactly what we have to offer. So one thing that's benefited, I think, our league is, humbly, I'm the only league representative that I've ever seen at the CCM Showcase. Everybody else represents a team. I've never seen another league out there. And I think what that helps with our teams is, say there's 7 or there are 8 teams out there. Of course, those 7 or 8 teams are selling them their individual programs, right? But then you get a family that comes up and talks to me and says, all right, now tell us the differences between those 7 or 8 programs, right? Because I really think that all of our programs are different in many different ways. Some have more host families than others. Some have more ice time than others. You name it. But ultimately, the end goal for all of our teams is to place our kids into college hockey, and we've done a pretty, I would say, damn good job doing that for the past 10 years.
Well, that you hit on a really good topic there, Neil. When kids, what kind of questions those parents are asking you? Because when you go program to program, every program is different. It's in a different location. It has a different rank. It has a different logo. It has different coaches. Every program is going to be different. There's merits and there's strong points to all programs. But what kind of questions are the most common questions kids ask of you in terms of getting into junior hockey?
The most common question is how to get on a coach's radar, right? Because they want to know exactly how they're going to essentially make the team, right? So, what I try and tell them to that question is, like, the easy thing to do for so many players, they think, is just to send video, right? I mean, goalies love to send themselves making saves, right? But whether it's our combines or other showcases, there are so many different ways to get noticed outside of the way that you actually play the game, right? The way that you dress stands out, right? We had an EHL combine this past weekend, and there was a player that I bet you if you asked him, he wasn't even the best player at the event, right? But he was in a polo and khakis with dress shoes every single day. That stands out, right? Another way to get noticed are the coaches. There's coaches on the bench at these events, right? Like CCM Showcase, there's always 2 coaches on every bench. I can tell you right now, if you go back to the bench and you're complaining about, a missed call or somebody not getting off the ice fast enough or not getting credit for the secondary assist, you name it, coaches notice that stuff, right? So the biggest question I get asked is, how do I get on a coach's radar? But I think it's twofold, right? How do I get on a coach's radar in a positive way? And how do I stay there, right? Because you don't want to get on a coach's radar as someone with a big X next to their name, because that coach doesn't want to talk to you anymore. So really that biggest question, first and foremost, is how to get on a coach's radar. And really it's just good, strong communication and displaying strong characteristics as a player, both on and off the ice.
That's great, Neil. That's really, really helpful information for a lot of listeners. I get those common questions all the time too. And you're right. You get a lot of kids who want to send video, but then when they show up, it's a very different player. Mm-hmm. It's a very different player who shows up in the building on the ice. And then actually, when you interact with that player, some kids kind of hide behind the keyboard a little bit. They're really, really good at emails, but when you want to have a conversation with them, it's a very different scenario. Now, on the other end of the junior hockey recruiting, you also interact a lot with college coaches at some of our events and combines and showcases. What are some of the things that college coaches tell you about recruiting athletes in the EHL, or the type of athletes that they're looking for coming out of our league?
I would say college coaches look even more at the body language, right? Any college coach can log into Elite Prospects and see that so-and-so's got 20 points in 20 games, right? That's easy. It's the other little things that they do that help you win games, right? Because in a perfect world, the EHL's leading scorer puts up 70 points in the season, and he goes and puts up the same numbers in college the next year, right? But it doesn't always work like that, because when you get into college, you're not in that same first-line power play role. You're trying to earn your spot, right? So for college coaches, they're looking for the players that block a shot, right? That take their shifts seriously. They don't max out over a minute and 15 seconds for their shifts. They take good, strong, short shifts. They change at the right time. College coaches, I think, not to discredit junior coaches, but they have a little bit more experience at times, right? So they're looking for little extra, you could even call them nitpicky pieces that help a player really stand out, because when you get to that next level, the margin for error just shrinks, right? So, taking a longer shift could mean the difference between a goal or not. And, you watch the way all these postseason games ended, right? I obviously am a Quinnipiac alum. I'm not sure if this was going to come up at all in the podcast, but Quinnipiac won the Division
Not a big deal.
No name dropping here.
The Division One national championship 10 seconds in, right? 10 seconds in, and I've spent so much time watching that goal back, but all it took was one player to just take a hair of a second off on his shift, right? The Minnesota player loses the faceoff and then is a little bit frustrated by it, then turns to see where his guy went, and in that split second, that's the game, right? So that's what college coaches really, for the most part, are looking for, because that split second is the difference between winning and losing, and at that level, winning and losing is just magnified.
That's a great point you bring up. I remember sitting at Plymouth State Ice Arena about 4 or 5 years ago, and I was going to see Blake Harlow play. He was a freshman at UMass Dartmouth, and he was out of the lineup. And I brought my kids there, and we got to hang out with him a little bit. He was a great Wolves alum, and we talked about, hey, you're in a couple games, you're out a couple games. What do you think you can attribute to that too? And he says, I coach. We have so many more face-off plays at this level. We have so many more just structured plays that we're doing. Whereas, that we don't really talk about the things we were doing in junior, that basic habits of hockey, whether it's stick positioning or angling or those kind of general hockey topics. We're focused more on the set plays and the face-offs that you don't really get in junior hockey because you have so many more other things you have to cover prior to that. That's some great stuff, Neil. Trevor, what do you got for Neil?
Well, besides two things. First thing, I think I have the same hat, but it looks better on you. The other one is you hit the nail on the head with talking about the coaching. Being on the right side of the being on the radar. Because actually, what you just described, like that scenario, I remember. Same showcase. We're talking about. I was sitting on the bench, and there was one kid who just. His teammates even didn't, and again, these are kids that he's never played with before, who had nothing wanted to do with him. They were pissed off because he was taking that minute 25 shift, and then he'd come back to the bench bitching about something, and finally, I was just like, I looked at him and I was just like, dude, you're not helping your cause with anybody right now, and he just like looks at me and he's just like, oh my God, a coach is giving me feedback, and it's like, and it's not good. So, I think you really hit the nail on the head there. For players that are not, again, obviously both of you are a part of the EHL. And again, we talked about CCM, but how would you say for a player that is, in the Midwest or the South, how do they get on the radar to, take part and play in the EHL? Because, you guys are you're only so far, whereas you've got, all the, some of the other tier 3 programs or clubs, not even clubs, but the other tier 3 leagues are just scattered throughout the whole country. So how do I get on the radar if I'm a player that's living here in Chicago?
You reach out, right? You send an email, right? And I think that's the next big part of this whole conversation because I've seen it so much firsthand. Coaches want to hear from players, right? Coaches don't want to hear from players' parents. Because ultimately, when we get to this upcoming September/October, when I'm just going to use Blake Harlow's name, I know he's out of the league right now. He's already in college, but if his coach at the EHL level for the Wolves, Tim Kuhns, decides that for the next game Blake Harlow is not in the lineup, he's going to talk to Blake Harlow about that. He's not going to call home first to talk to that parent about what's taking place with their son, right? So I think the more that the players can reach out and create that interaction between themselves and the coach, that to get back on that radar word, that gets you on that radar and gets you possibly seen or followed more throughout the year. There's all like when I then compare the next steps, like I remember when I used to interview for jobs before the EHL, there were things that I would tell myself like, during interviews, pick up on the nuances, pick up on little things that stand out. Maybe the person that you're talking to, the coach that you're talking to, mentioned that he has a newborn son or something like that, right? So that when you have that next interaction and you could give that little extra note like, hey, hope your son is doing well, or how did that tournament go that you were telling me about for your son? It gives that personal feeling like you're listening, right? When you get those generic emails that either go from coach to player or from player to coach, neither side's really interested, right? But if you can come up with something personal that catches, in this case, the coach's attention, I think that's huge, right? You look up Tim Kuhns and you say, hey, like, you're the head coach of the Wolves. I'm not from the area, but I actually kind of grew up a BC fan because I became a big fan of Johnny Gaudreau. Did you play at BC the same time Johnny Gaudreau did? That catches that coach's attention, right? And it makes them want to answer it more than the email that says, hey, I'm a goalie from California. Here's my top 10 saves. Look at this cool video, right? Yeah. So really, to answer your question, it's to create that interaction and do so in a way where you get the coach's attention where he's like, you know what? I want to answer this kid. And you know what? I'm going to follow. He has games this weekend. I'm going to check the box scores and see how he does because ultimately that's how you get on the radar and that's how you get the opportunity to come east and play in our league.
Wow, that sounds awfully familiar, doesn't it?
I got a funny story. So last week before I went down to Atlanta for a showcase, I had Tim over, and we're talking about just some game planning for the upcoming season, and it was actually a week ago. It was on the 12th. I had it. No, on the 11th, okay. And I'd seen a number of posts about a Quinnipiac alum in our league, and he was posting how he's the all-time leading scorer, and all credit to him. That's great. Yes. That's awesome. But I was like, there's a lot of posts about one particular player, about one particular program. Yep. And I was like, well, I'm going to post on April 12th is an anniversary because Tim won the national championship with Boston College on April 12th, 2008. And so Tim's down here. He's having a couple of drinks, and we're talking about what we're going to do for the next upcoming weeks and games and all that kind of stuff. And he was like, I was like, you mind if I post that? And he's like, don't do that. Don't do that. Just don't. I showed him the things that were in mind that we're talking about.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, still, I know what you're at, and I like it, but don't do it.
Oh, it's Tim's personality too, right? He's a very, very humble guy. What I tell everyone when talking about Tim Kuhns is he's played some of the highest level hockey of all the coaches in our league, and it's not even close, Absolutely. Right? I mean, you look at some of the players that he played with at BC, because those were, not to say that BC's bad by any means, right? It's not the glory days of BC, right? But, when he was there were some absolute studs that were at that school. And I think that's really what our league in particular, I know this isn't all about the EHL, but that's what our league has to offer, right? We have tremendous coaches. I said earlier, there's probably some college coaches that have more experience than our junior coaches, but the resumes that our junior coaches have as well, those have grown and grown over the years. And I think it's what makes our league extra special.
Absolutely. Now, what's in terms of success stories? You've seen a lot of kids come up to you at these showcases. You've seen a lot of kids interact with you at different events within our league. What's a good example of a kid who may have been off the radar, during their high school career or their years prior to junior hockey, but then used junior hockey for a platform to get to the next level and is now achieving that next level of success? What is a good example of a kid who found his way onto a roster and then made it work for him?
So he is a perfect one because we're talking about CCM so much. His name is Blake Bride. He's from Colorado. He attended the CCM showcase for a number of years while he was in high school. It wasn't until the last year that he attended it that he finally had an offer to come east. Blake had no idea what the EHL was. Absolutely no clue. But he came out east and he played for the Boston Junior Rangers for a year. He then, after a year at our level, went up to the NA for a year, played a full year there, then went up to the USHL for a year, wore the C. It was either Sioux City or Sioux Falls. I can't believe I'm forgetting that. I think it was Sioux City. And won a Clark Cup in the USHL, right? And then went on to play Division I college hockey. Right, so you could make the argument that if he never attends the CCM showcase, does he go on to play college hockey? Maybe not, right? So, I mean, he went on to play Division I at the Air Force Academy. So it's just kind of, that one's always so unique for me because he's a kid from Colorado who ended up back in Colorado at the highest level that he could, and he's going to be a captain at Air Force, right? He's one of the leaders there, and that's a kid that truly had no idea who we were at all before attending the CCM showcase. So that's one of the ones I tell the most, especially when I go out to this CCM showcase, because he was literally in the same shoes of, you could say, 400 players the CCM showcase puts out there every year. He was in those shoes. So that one, I have to tell that one first and foremost because that's an event that we've been going to for a number of years. And then the EHL, this is the second year of our Combine series. And obviously, you go into our Combines and fingers crossed, like somebody pops in a huge way where I can tell that story for years and years and years, right? There was a player last year at our Combine named Jacob Gates, who was a defenseman who had played actually in a few different junior leagues before he came to our Combine. Which he walked in, said, hey, I'm heading into my age-out season. I'm going to hopefully put on a good performance for the EHL coaches that are here and see what it leads to. And he went on to play for the ProTech Junior Ducks this past season, was a first-team all-EHL selection, and is now going to play at SUNY Brockport in the fall, right? So again, you can make the case that if he doesn't attend our combine, does he end up at SUNY Brockport? And I think the full circle part for me with Jacob Gates is we do this unique thing in the EHL where we play college hockey programs. We put all-star teams together to play college hockey programs because the colleges want to see players play college hockey while they're still in juniors, right? The EHL is going to line up against Jacob Gates this fall. Like that's just pretty damn cool, right? This is a kid that, on a random night, maybe it was a month ago, a year and a month ago at this time, back March of 2022, said, you know what, I'm going to sign up for the EHL Combine. Hopefully I get on someone's radar heading into my age-out year. Lo and behold, he's going to go play at SUNY Brockport in, one of the toughest Division III conferences in the country.
I think it's a great point. It's about giving yourself sometimes a long runway. If you're a kid who is maybe excelling at U16, you can play another year U16 or maybe another year U18, but giving yourself the chance to challenge yourself against older, more mature and experienced players in a different environment makes a big difference. And you saw that with, Glenn Heffernan's post about the commitment numbers and how many kids actually bill it before their college hockey experience. And it's like 95% of kids bill it before their college hockey experience. And that really is related to playing junior hockey.
For sure.
We had a great, the player that we've been communicating with, David Meloragni, I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. He played 3 years in the Eastern Hockey League as a young kid, like 16, 17 years old. And then, that provided more opportunities for him. It opened up opportunities to play in the BCHL and then eventually to play at Canisius and to the Frozen Four, whatever it was. I forget the actual terminology. The NCAA tournament this year.
Yes.
But, if he stuck around for another year U16 and then maybe played U18, maybe those opportunities don't exist. So it's fun you brought up Blake Bride because he's a similar type player.
And I'm glad that you brought up a younger kid like that because it's another question that I think helps when parents can come to me when they're at the CCM showcase, right? And their son's a U16, maybe even a U18 player, and they're trying to weigh the pros and cons of leaving home now, and I'm going to say it, missing prom, missing some of the senior year type things, right? And going to play junior hockey, but then it helps because they're like, hey, you know what? My son's realized that he has to take that step now. Can you help him find a team that has a better chance to have a host family than living in an apartment, right? And I'll say, you know what? You look at the New England Wolves, you look at the Seahawks Hockey Club, they have more host families than, say, the New Jersey 87s, right? And it's not a shot at the New Jersey 87s, but people on the Cape and people in Laconia are more willing to open up their door than someone down on the Jersey Shore, right? And that's where I think it goes back to the question that was brought up earlier, is asking all of those questions if you're a young player like that, because the longer the runway that you can give yourself, the better chances you have at success. No doubt about that, Andrew. But then if you're that young and you're 16, 17 years old and you're taking off for somewhere, ask every question that you can come up with so you know what you're getting yourself into. I mean, the biggest question I tell people to ask is, where am I going to sleep at night? Because that's a big thing, right? Like, you want to know that you're going to have a comfortable place to live. And you could ask that whether you're 16 or whether you're 20, right? But I do love the stories of players like David that you mentioned, Andrew, who put in the years and put in the time and eventually get to where they want to get to, because the competition to play college hockey is only getting harder and harder as the years have progressed.
That's great stuff, Neil. You got anything for Neil, Trevor?
No, I mean, outside of sometimes I even ask myself that question: where am I going to end up sleeping tonight? But still to this day. But
that's why I didn't go to my senior prom.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, but I mean, as I've said it numerous times, I mean, I and this isn't to pump your guys' brakes, and I wouldn't even have cared who was on here. I really like the EHL model. I think you guys are doing a fantastic job. You guys can actually back up the claims upon the Tier 3 level that many other clubs try to back up. So I mean, it's not to take away from anybody else, but I do I do appreciate what you guys are doing and how you guys are going about it, and you guys are doing things the right way.
Yeah, I mean, the one point I wanted to make sure I did bring up, it's funny how many ideas you come up with when you're just, in the shower or laying in bed at night. We have this slogan that, I'm trying to get to catch on. We are the E-show, right? That's what we like to call ourselves. One night I was just thinking about, every player's story is so different, right? You can come from the same town, be the same age as somebody else, but your path is going to be different than somebody else's. So I love to say that when it comes to our league, every story is different. And we're ready to help you write the next chapter in yours. We have this new T-shirt, Next Stop, the E-Show. I think that really tells everyone who we are, right? Because our league does a tremendous job of helping you write that next chapter, whatever it may be. I mean, there's younger kids that want to work up to higher levels of junior and go on to Division I. There's kids that come in and say, you know what? My goal is to go to a NESCAC school and make sure that when I get out, I have a damn good degree and a job, right? So I think that's really what it all comes down to is when you come to play junior hockey, you have a next stop in mind. And I would make sure that throughout that process, you're asking everybody the right questions that's going to help you get to that next stop. Because if for some reason they're not giving you clear-cut answers, then your next stop should be somewhere else. And I take a lot of pride in what our league does because I think that they do take a lot of pride themselves, each and every team, in providing the right resources for all of the players. So
I'll keep it up.
We'll try.
No pressure. just some guy in the Midwest. No big deal, but no, yeah.
Well, great stuff, Neil. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you guys for having me.
All right. So thanks again, Neil, for coming on the Hockey Toolkit. Really great information. Trevor, what really stood out for you in terms of what he brought to the table?
I mean, overall, Neil's just a great guy to begin with. I know I met Neil probably, I want to say, actually, it would have been, back in 2018, I think I met him, 2019, in person at, again, CCM, so that's why I referenced the hat, because I have that exact same hat. It was a great hat. I just overwore it, though. It looks much better on him, though, than it does on me. I mean, again, there was just so much good information. I really like the aspect of not only the commissioner of the league, but he does recruiting for the league too, and he's trying to put players in the best situation possible for them. And it might not just be with one team; it might be with another team here and there. And I think that's that the ability to be flexible like that, but and fair. I think that's a bonus. I mean, you guys are, and I say you because you're in the EHL, but you guys are very lucky to have a guy, I believe, like Neil, who does that for the players. And Neil's also, he runs, he's a part of the E-Show that runs weekly over also on the Hockey Focus's podcast platforms. So he's involved in all areas. So I don't envy him because I'm sure it's a very hectic and stressful regular season, but I think he does a fantastic job for not only the league itself, but the individual players too. How about you, Coach? What do you? I know you're much more personable level with Neil, but you work with him probably daily, if not almost every other day.
Well, I agree with you on all those fronts, Trevor. I think you really hit the nail on the head. He's very passionate about the league. He's very passionate about junior hockey. And then he's very passionate about marketing our Eastern Hockey League players onto college hockey. And he's created some great events for the league that have been fantastic in terms of exposure opportunities for our players. The one thing I really enjoyed about in terms of what he was communicating is that, even at the EHL Combine in this past weekend, he remembered the players who dressed up appropriately. When they came in there, he said this kid was wearing khakis and a polo, and that makes a big difference. That kid stuck out. Now whether he was the best player on the ice or not doesn't really matter, because that kid got some heads to turn towards him, and then maybe you watched him for a little bit and said maybe he's as good as 50% of the rest of the kids at this showcase, but I know he's a good kid, and I know he's a prepared kid. I know he's a kid that actually gives a shit. So I'm going to talk to that kid. So when you're presenting yourself in a showcase or a combine, players, put your best foot forward. And I think that was a good sentiment that Neil sent out there.
And I can only say from my own experience as like a player, in anything, especially at those younger ages, like it's awkward. No, some kids have a lot more swagger than I guess I did, but like it's awkward to be that one player who's completely, dressed really nice compared to everybody else who's, sitting there walking around in their, their warm-ups or whatever. And especially when, again, using CCM, we do have that, I think it's an hour, it's like 2 or 3 hours maybe, where all the teams are up on the concourse. You could stop by and see us. I do remember the players that were dressed, again, not appropriately, but were dressed well, that were taking it very seriously. And again, that's not easy to do again, some players have better swagger than I do, but that definitely isn't something that's always easy to do. I mean, I know I would have felt a little bit out of place at first, but, now looking back, I mean, as a coach, looking at it in my shoes now, or as a, a scout, and again, Neil said, he remembers those kids. And that goes a long way, more than people realize. And so if your parents are sitting in the car, you're listening to this on the car ride, and they're shaking their head with their head up and down, like, "Oh, see, I told you." Yeah, yeah, it's the truth. So, that was a great tidbit there, and I like that. So, again, thanks to Neil. I really enjoyed everything he had to say and the information he brought.
Yeah, and there's, I always think of it like, I know it's a cliche kind of, it's a job interview, but, if you want to play junior hockey and you want to play at the highest level possible, you got to put in the work to be the best player. Everybody knows that. You really got to do that, though. You really have to commit yourself both on and off the ice to be the best player you can be. But then beyond that, the pyramid narrows as you get to the top. And, all those other little things contribute to whether you're going to keep climbing that pyramid. Are you eating the right foods? Are you sending out emails that are, make you attractive to coaches at the next level? Are you dressing appropriately? Are you saying please and thank you? And are you accountable? If you're in the lobby and you're, "Ma, where's the meatloaf?"
Yeah.
I don't want to talk to you.
Right, no way.
So, "Mom, the meatloaf, fuck."
And if I see your parents carrying your hockey bags at a combine, you are automatically I don't even care. You could be the greatest kid there. You are automatically scratched off my list for sure. Or if you got a rolling bag too, but I'm not going to go that far. That's another story for a different day. But
all
yeah,
those
no.
things matter. It all adds up. Like you're getting a brief picture of what you're going to experience for the year if they sign with your program. So I know that it's a date. It's like a date. Like if you're gonna, you want somebody who's dressed appropriately, who looks all right. And, I know the standards are a little different now. Kids can go to school. There's pajama day at school. They can dress down a little bit. It's a little bit different than it used to be. But, if you want to get recruited by an older generation coach who's in his 40s or 50s, well, get on his level.
Right. No, yeah. I don't disagree with that 100%. And again, I got to say, I'm like my early 30s still, but yeah, even I want to make sure you're not showing up as looking like a bum, looking like you just rolled out of bed, and again, that doesn't even have to go for any showcase. You and I are, I'm not at currently, but in the past I was, all year round, we're always looking for players. It's not just at showcases. So, when you show up for your game, and it might be a 8:00 game on a Saturday night, wherever, at least look decent. Hopefully at the older ages, coaches have some type of a dress code. But don't be showing up, and again, as you said, like in your pajamas or, look like you give a shit. Look like you're there to play because, again, one of the things that stuck with me, and it didn't really pay off anyways, but it stuck with me was that, you never know who's watching. And you literally don't. I can't tell you how many kids that I've seen that I was like, you know what, I really like that kid. I want to find out what they're doing. I'm going to eventually find out that I'm signing with a different club anyways, but I could be at a rink and, they're helping out with a clinic or they're, they've got their own team practice, and I'm looking at them like, man, that kid's good. I want to know what they're doing, and here I am. They don't even know that they just saw me get done working with a bunch of, 10-year-olds, and they don't know that, hey, this guy's actually works for, a junior team as well. Like, and he's seeing me interact with the kids as well. Like, and I'm, being a good role model. Like, you never know who's watching. While you might hear it, and again, it's one of those things where you're like, yeah, whatever. Like, it's the truth. You really don't ever know who's watching.
And before we get to our 5 minutes, I'll say this one thing just about that too. So I had a call with the assistant coach at Long Island University. It probably was last January 22. And he was asking about a former player who played in our program, Patrick Marcinkiewicz, who was having a great year at his final year of junior hockey. And he was like, yeah, I figured I'd give you a buzz. I know that you ran the Wolves program, but I also saw that I think he worked for you. Actually, I don't know if I should talk about this because I paid him under the table and I didn't report it to the government. But so
we'll cut it out. Then.
I paid him straight cash. He's a Latvian kid. So anyway, they were like, how does he interact with the kids and parents? I said, well, Patrick was great. Like, he interacted with the kids. The kids, like, he's giving the kids piggybacks, and they're like, oh, that's awesome. And that made a big difference in that coach's mindset of how he was off the ice and how he interacted with kids in the community. So those things do matter. They do matter.
Oh, absolutely. It's and again, so that those things go a long way. And again, just no matter where you are, even in life, just try to be a model citizen. Again, especially trying to be scouted and be watched by, get picked up by team. Coaches talk. Trust me, there's players that we've, again, at these showcases that we've talked to other coaches about, and, you hear little things like, oh, yeah, this kid, he's a troublemaker, or he's this or that, or, they were talking about this in the locker room. I mean, even players, if you're talking about some stupid shit in the locker room, it might get out. So, again, be mindful of yourself. Again, be the best that you can be in those situations. And then, again, let the chips fall where they may. So...
Absolutely. So let's go to our 5 minutes. What do we got here?
Well, this week it was you were the starter on this one, so let me make sure I got mine pulled up here. But it's the 5 myths of junior hockey recruiting. So you got 1 through you got the odd numbers today.
5 myths of junior hockey recruiting. Number 1, it's a money grab. I hear this all the time from parents. They talk. It's kind of like a catchphrase. I don't even know what it means anymore. It's a money grab, like just grabbing money. Just
right.
Grab. Give me that money. Give me that money. And I don't know what that means, man. I don't know what it means. Like junior hockey, in my experience, the kids that come out of junior hockey at 20 years old have college credits under their belt, are more physically and emotionally and mentally ready for college. I would want everybody to do an experience like that prepares them for life. And junior hockey does a great job of that. Yeah, it's around the framework of playing hockey, but it's basically maybe a 1 or 2 or 3 year internship into the rest of your life. And it can develop relationships that you can use later in life. It can get you college credits or help with college credits. It can help you find an avenue or experience that maybe you want to pursue in college to be your career. And sometimes to get there, you have to do things that cost money. And junior hockey is going to cost money in many cases. Some showcases are going to cost money, but you get out what you put into it. So it's a money grab only in the loose framework of whatever a money grab is. In my experience, kids get paid in spades. They make money off the deal.
I think the money grab idea is subjective for a lot of people on how they use it, because I've heard it, as you alluded to, you hear it in different, places and different things. Do I think showing up for a kid who is a tier 3 level player going to a USHL / NA, NA camp, tryout, pre-tryout or pre-draft camp. Do I think that's a little bit, is it a money grab? No, because you're the one who's paying for it. You gotta be realistic. And I'm not going to go too far with that because it's one of my myths, but, one of the things though is that, is junior hockey recruiting? No, No, I mean, I don't think it is. I think, are there some shady clubs out there? We've said it before. Yes, there's some that I would not, if I had kids that I knew of, I would not be sending them to, out to those programs. But that, in large part, most clubs care. They want their kids to get better. And as you said, it's a good gap year. You're transitioning your child, your young male, young adult, from going from being a high school student to college. But it's a little bit slower of a transition instead of it happening all in 1 year. And again, look at the college dropout rate. I don't know what it is. I'm going to pretend it's probably still a pretty decent number. How many kids end up, flunking out first semester? How many of those kids would have been better off if they went to a prep school type deal? And that's what junior hockey's kind of is.
Sure.
So I agree with you on, a lot of those aspects. I do know where the parents say it's a money grab, but I think the money grabs are not in the places that they're really saying they are. And I don't think it's to the extent that they're saying. And again, at the end of the day, it's your money. So don't let anybody grab it. Hide that under your pillow, under a mattress, wherever. Hide it.
And it's losing money if you do that. Inflation is a real bitch.
It is. So I got number 2, which here, because suddenly Trevor loses his shit. Number 2 here is once you made a team, your team is over. In the recruiting process itself, you might get offers from numerous teams. That doesn't mean you need to stop. Like, oh, guess what? I know I'm going to the second showcase, but I've already got offers from other clubs. I need to stop trying. Like, this is kind of a twofold answer or myth. No, you need to still try no matter where you are, because maybe you're going to find yourself moving up to a higher league or a better, which is still a good fit for you. So don't ever just, stop while you're in those showcases when, because again, you never know who's watching. And again, once you made a team, like, great, guess what? You've made the team. They signed you, this and that. They also have the ability to, let you go. So you need to take your training seriously in this, the off season. You need to show up to camp ready to go. You need to show up to the regular season ready to go. You can't just be like, oh, guess what? I got signed by, the Scranton, Dunder Mifflins over here. So I guess
Scranton Paper Kings.
Yes, there you go, Scranton Paper Kings. Yeah, so I don't have to try anymore. Like, no, you still need to put in the work. And there's a player one of the players that I signed, who came into the very first player that I signed, did a phenomenal job at the showcase that was up here in the Chicagoland area. And this was, probably almost a decade ago, too. One of the most talented players at the showcase. Not tooting my own horn here, but there's probably ended up a reason why we ended up getting him. And the talent was there. He looked really good. But then he showed up to camp, and you could tell, like, he was just fucking around all summer. Probably didn't put much time in and, doing any off-season workouts or anything, and it showed. I mean, you could still see some of the talent was there, but from, the reports that I got was that it took him a while to get up, ramped up and going. And by that point, everybody else kind of had passed him by, and he ended up getting traded. And hope he's doing better now. But, at that scene, it was like, it sucked because I was a kid that I brought in. And I was, pumped. But the thing was, like, the coaches could see the skill. Like, we knew it was there, but it was just like, okay, well, the kid didn't really put in the effort. Well, shame on me, and that was a lesson I learned. So that's what I have for number 2 there, Coach.
That's great. I agree with her 100%. My number 3 is this. I've heard this before, like tier 3 will take anyone. And, tier 3 is a wide variety of levels. It's a wide variety of leagues. And I disagree entirely with that. There's so many players we've come through our radar that they're not a good fit either. Physically, they can't play at the level. Mentally, they're not diligent enough or ready to play, practice 2 times a day or every single day for 6-7 months, They don't love the game at that much. So, the idea that there's always a team for you, I disagree with. there's always a team for you. It's called men's league. You have
Exactly.
you have to be a committed player who wants to have that junior hockey experience if you want to really embrace it and get to the next level. So you really got to ramp your game up. If you are coming out of high school and you want to play junior hockey, you're going to have to step up your game. You got to be ready for that. It's a new challenge.
Absolutely. And are there and again, so the only thing that and I wouldn't say it's a disagreement, we do know that there are leagues out there that have teams that will take a body just because it's a body and it's, they need to hit a quota for their own balance sheet. I'm not going to sit here and bullshit and say that that's not true, but it's not as prevalent, I think, as people think. Just some people are not cut. Some players are just not cut out for that, junior hockey entirely. And most of the time, some of those kids are at that tier 3 level. So that's where those bad experiences, you hear about them. And it's just like, you know what? Well, maybe this just wasn't the right fit for you. And the clubs that it's not the right fit for, usually they go by the wayside anyway. So, all right. Number four then is teams will find you. I think it's talking out of both sides of my mouth here, but I think it's true. It's a myth that teams will find you in a sense of, let's look at it from the standpoint of, if I'm not in a rink and there's no other junior coaches or scouts or whatever in a rink, no one's going to find you. Okay. You've got to put yourself out there. We've talked about email communication. That's huge for coaches. Because, we'd love nothing more in the off season to be sitting at our laptops all day long answering emails. But also, you got to go out and do these showcases and combines. And I'm not saying you need to attend 5, 6, 7 of them, because I do. We know of players that do that. And again, part of that money could be saving for your upcoming season with one of the teams you got an offer from. But it's more or less just making sure that, you put yourself out there. And then when you go to some of these camps, like you go to CCM, you go to Global, wherever, you might get noticed by a bunch of teams. And that's not a bad thing, and if you're getting hit up and they're sending you legit emails like, hey, we really liked you, and they're calling you, like, don't ignore them. Like, the worst thing you can say is, you're not going to hurt our feelings as coaches, as scouts. If you say, hey, you know what, I appreciate the offer, but I've been offered this, I'm going to sign with this team. I don't know about you, Coach, but I would hate where kids would give us the runaround and then they would literally just ghost you and just not respond to a certain thing. Or you'd be having phone conversations with them and all of a sudden they're not picking up and they just text you on the side, oh, I decided to go with so-and-so team like 2 weeks ago. It's like, well, I'm wasting my time, trying to get a hold of you, and, that I could be working with a player who really wants to join our program. And maybe that's just me going off on another tangent of its own. It's tangent filled Wednesday night here. But more or less, you do have to put yourself out there. Having good quality, game tape. Coaches will ask, because if we don't see you in person, we're going to want to see something of you. We're not going to just want to take your word for it. No offense. We'd love to trust everybody, but we can't. So again, having like good quality, shifts. Even if you give me a game or two that I have to look up, fine. If you're worth it, great. But you will have to do some work. It's practice, train like somebody might, you might get seen, but definitely put yourself out there so that you do get seen though too.
I agree with you. I think that it's there's a happy medium, but you have to if you want to get to the next level, you have to invest time, energy, and resources into training, developing, and making your game better. Like, you have to invest those dollars in that, or that time in that. But you should also put yourself in situations that can be seen, and places like Elite Edge or CCM are great combines or showcases for that. There is, on the other end, though, if you're always training and playing these showcases all summer, you're not necessarily devoting as much time to your training regimen and your body as you need to be. So there's a happy medium you got to find there. And I think it's, pick one or two out of the schedule in the summer, find a good fit, something that's maybe not cost prohibitive to your parents, but requires an airline or a flight and hotels, and then make it work and put your best foot forward for sure.
I think the big thing is be realistic. You know, you've done it. I've heard it. It's one of the things that would frustrate me the most when I go and talk to a kid like, hey, what are your plans for this upcoming fall? And here I am. I'm working with a Tier 3 program, and I'm hearing, yeah, I'd really like to go to a null. I really want to play in the null next year or this and that. And it's like, look, buddy, if I'm the one talking to you, they're not. And most of the time, no one else is. Like, there's a reason why it's me on this Tier 3 team who's talking to you and not, an NA team or NCDC team or wherever, or a USHL team. Like, be realistic, so that's all I got. Yeah, I'm going to shut up now. Next caller.
No, that's all good. All good. I agree with you, Trevor. I agree with you. All right, my fifth
So what do you got
one
for
here.
number 5?
We're probably going to hit on this one because we've already skirted around the issue.
Sorry.
A little bit. No, it's perfect. So, Tier 2 pre-draft camps. They get you on the radar.
Oh, yeah, they do, right? To get drafted, right?
This
This is one of those episodes where it would be awesome if we just had a video so people could actually see our deadpan looks.
It's just this
time.
awkward silence.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I guess, like, what's your radar? Like, there's 600 kids here. Like, I don't know. Like, and then you got 4 more camps after this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
And I always would. I tell sometimes, I've had these conversations with kids, and they've tell me what they've spent on Tier 2 or Tier 2 camps all summer. I'll get frustrated at a certain point. We all have our limits, right? And sometimes I'll be like, well, you do realize that all the money you worked for and spent went to go towards somebody else playing for free.
Right. Yeah.
That's it.
And this might be where people say the money grab is, but that's not because of the clubs themselves. You put yourself in those situations. Now, if the club's sitting here selling you, oh yeah, we're going to take your kid, and then they don't, and legitimately your kid's doesn't even belong at that level, fine, that's a money grab, fine, that's shady. But how many coaches, how many teams can you actually sit here and say do that? Like, I can't think of that many.
I can't either. I mean, you're just feeding somebody else's opportunity, really. I mean, there's kids. We could get really deep dive on it, but there's kids that we've had in our program for 2-3 years, and they go 3 or 4 camps every single summer, and it's thousands of dollars. Like, yeah. Man, I hope your sister's not getting married soon, buddy. Like,
yeah,
she's not going to be able to. Like, they're going to have to. McDonald's is going to be catering that wedding,
Yeah, sorry, we couldn't have this at a decent venue. We've got to have it here at the Outback.
Yeah,
my brother thought he was going to make
Friendly's is open.
Yeah, my brother thought he was going to make it on the national championship Tier 2 team, but or my parents thought he'd make it there. But I mean, we laugh when we say these things, but we have it with good intentions because we see it year after year. And again, I think that comes back to being realistic of where you're at as a player. And neither Coach Trimble or I want to shoot anybody's dreams down or anything of that nature because, you need dreams, you need goals, but you need to also be realistic with those dreams and goals too, to a certain extent. And if you're chasing camp after camp after camp, like, teams aren't going to tell you no if they need the roster spots. Like, they're not going to say, okay, no, you can't show up, but you're not doing yourself a favor if after, like, okay, if you do one, great. Just to see where you're at, I'm all for that. But if you're doing like 3 or 4 in a summer, like, all right, well, you're a glutton for punishment because there's or your dad's Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates or something like that, because I don't know how the hell these parents can afford all this stuff. And my favorite line is, well, it's his dream. It's his dream to do this. Well, yeah, my dream was to play, in the NHL or to have a gold, a toilet seat made of gold. But you don't see that happening, so I had to somehow shrink my goals a little bit here.
I think Coach Power said it best last week. He said, go out. I forget the first one, but the second one was dominate. If you're dominating whatever, if you're dominating whatever level you're at, then you gotta crack. But if you're like under a point a game player and you're a mid-level, a middle six forward who is just struggling to stay in the lineup, then the next level's you're not ready for the next level. You need to dominate the level you're at before you can investigate those new opportunities.
Right. 100%. I mean, it's one of those things though that not enough people want to talk about, not enough people want to put out there, I think. And again, sometimes it feels like we have to be the bad guys, and I don't want to be the bad guy here. I don't want to ruin a kid's his hopes and his dreams, but again, you got to be realistic. Like as you said, if you're not playing on the power, any special teams, and you're in and out of the lineup here and there, what makes you? Why would I, as a coach at a higher level, what makes you attractive to me? Like what? There's nothing. You've got nothing right now that is making me, if one coach doesn't trust you, it's not like all of a sudden I'm going to sit here and be like, oh, that coach is wrong. Like, I'm not going to probably waste my time. Like, I don't know. I think it's silly season. It's one of the 2 seasons of the year. That and the beginning of the season for at least youth hockey tryouts, I call silly season because right now everybody, in the junior landscape, just because there's so many teams out there, so many leagues, everybody's fighting for, you can have 6, 7, 8 different teams fighting for one kid, and they're going to sell you their soul just to get you on the team, which might save that for another day, kind of what to look for and what not to. Maybe that could be next episode. But just realize that Coach Trimble and I are here to not kick you and run over your puppy. We're here to we're just here to educate and trying to make sure everybody gets the best possible experience that, we should get. So,
absolutely.
Anything you want to say, Coach, before we sign off here for episode 13?
No, I think that was a good one. I think it's a lot of information for parents. I think it's a good chance to digest this information. The last 2 episodes really, as it prepares for going into the summer and those showcases, and it gives you a good kind of glimpse behind the curtain of what some of those programs look like, whether it be the college hockey recruiting landscape or the junior hockey recruiting landscape.
Absolutely. So, again, you guys ever got questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to reach out to Coach Trimble and I. Contact information is in the show notes, though I'm sure you can find us anywhere on Google or any other thing. I'm sure we've got our information somewhere. But episode 13 now in the books. So, thanks for listening, Coach. You have a good weekend.
You too, Trevor. Thanks for tuning in, folks.